Greetings, welcome and welcome back. In this episode, I talked to one of my many Reading captains, Bex Palmer, ahead of an enormous Ultimate of summer. We cover her early start in Ultimate, her vast experiences playing with GB from juniors to 23s and 24s, all the way through to playing seniors at Beach Worlds and Grass Euros. We talk about Reading's history and her experience as a female matching player, captaining a huge mixed club like Reading, for looking at her summer fun and games at the World Games and then the World Ultimate Club Championships. I hope you enjoy this one. We had a lot of fun recording it. Let me know in the comments who I should chat to next. Right, well, I'm joined by Bex Palmer of Reading Ultimate. Bex, thanks very much for joining. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, thanks. Good. So for anyone who hasn't put two and two together, Bex has the absolute pleasure of captaining me this year at Reading Ultimate. Some say pleasure, some say challenge, some say pain in the ass. It's all the same, really. But I'm glad we're able to sit down and have this chat before you fly off to Alabama next week as part of the series. I also know you've probably had to duck out of a Sky Sports interview to facilitate, so it's good to know where your priorities lie. But over to you. Tell us a bit about yourself. When did you start playing Ultimate? What inspired you to start?
Yeah, so I was really lucky that at school one of my teachers played frisbee, Jessie Rogers, and so she set up an after-school club there, which was Stags Ultimate from First Plat. So I started playing at school. Went to university for a year, played it at university, and then decided that I did actually like the sport and I wasn't just doing it because my friends were. And then since then, I've basically been with Reading for the last 10 years.
Yeah, I was going to ask, so when did you start with Reading then? Was it as soon as you finished school, or was it kind of before that?
So I really got into the club when I left university, so I needed 1 year of university, so I came back in 2014 and then I've been with Reading ever since.
Oh, cool. Okay. And who would have been some of the big players at Reading at the time, anyone you would have looked up to when you joined?
So definitely Anya Godbold, as she is now. Wasn't at the time when I met her, but yes, she was definitely someone within the club that I looked up to. As was Kat Ashton at the time. She was around, and they were just great female athletes that were in the club, which were fantastic to be a part of. And I can remember, I think one of my first tournaments was winging it in Reading, and got a run through Dion Anya, and it was just the most amazing feeling. And it was kind of one of those moments where Andy was just like, "Oh my god, do you know who that is?"
Yeah.
So yeah, it was great to have them as part of the club, and then obviously Mark, who's still around, and there's all the people like that as well. Good
old Mark. Yeah, it's always so interesting when you have those first moments of realization that you do something cool. I think it was 2013, we were at tour with the Irish 23s, and I beat someone up the line playing against Magic Toast, and I didn't know who it was, and one of the guys on the sideline who was dating one of the players on our team was like, "Do you know who that was?" And I was like, "No." And they were like, "That's Colonel." And I was like, "Cool. I don't know." Sure. But later on I twigged, it was like, "Oh shit, he's one of the guys on the GB Open team. He's really fucking good at frisbee." And yeah, it's just, I kind of love those moments looking back in our careers, being you get that run through on Anya, I get that kind of up the line thing, and it's just those moments that when we bank those and build on them, then that kind of forms us as players. But you're one of the captains now at Reading and have been for a few years, kind of on and off, I guess. And I think it's common that we hear of teams and clubs, mixed teams and clubs, having both male and female matching captains of their teams. How have you found being a female matching captain at Reading? Have you experienced different challenges in your time versus those that you've kind of seen and heard male matching captains find challenging? And I guess with such a big club as well, like Reading, how is that for you?
So I first captained in 2016 and 2017. And I did 2016 with Joe Brown. And then 2017, I did it with Danny, Anya, and Andy. And then 2019, I did it with Matt. And then last year, I did it with Ryan. And this year, I'm doing it with Andy, Mark, and Ryan.
Yeah.
So there's always been that counterpart. I definitely felt like when I first started doing it with Joe, he at the time was quite busy. And so I did end up taking quite a lot of it on myself. But I think I was really lucky with how I came into doing the captaincy, because Mark was actually the one who was like, go on, Bex, do it. And I think because Mark, as we all know, is, you know, the heart and soul of Reading, for his like say so to be like, oh, go on, do it.
Yeah.
I just felt like I had that backing. And so I never really questioned whether I should be there or not, because I had like the seal of approval almost.
Yeah.
And I think to begin with, very much my way of captaining was just lead by example. If I try really hard, that's my doorbell. Can I go and get that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, 2 seconds.
You're good.
Seal of approval. And so I never really felt like I was out of place. And I enjoy captaining. I really love being a leader. And I think I've always tried to be, you know, I'm working hard, you should work hard too. And yeah, I hadn't really thought about if I'd had different experiences. I definitely think that there probably were some people in the club that looked at me and went, oh, why should I listen to her? And maybe that's something different that male captains don't have.
Yeah.
But I guess for me, I was never aware of it.
Yeah, that's great. And I guess that kind of speaks a bit to the club too, in that, you know, I've been part of other clubs whereby it is definitely a bigger struggle for the female matching captains. So it's actually really interesting then to get your perspective that like everyone's dealing with the same challenges. I guess like your challenge from the sense of things was workload in those early years, in terms of like taking on more when Joe was busy. But I guess then this year as well, with such a big group involved in running the book team, especially, not only just the four of you, but the people doing the other stuff behind the scenes like that, you probably get to focus a lot more on playing and stuff, which is nice.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice to have other people who use their strengths in different ways. I think of the four that we've got at the moment, you know, Andy is more of a tactical mind, so he's done a lot of the playbook side of things and a lot of tape sessions, whereas I think myself and Ryan, for example, are more of like the on-pitch talkers and leaders in that sense. So it's been quite nice to play to our strengths rather than maybe having to do stuff that we're maybe not so comfortable with.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then I think the other last thing really on Reading as a club, how has it changed over the years, and what are the strengths of the club as a whole?
No, it has changed. I think the idea behind Reading has always been to be the biggest club in the UK and to allow access to Ultimate at every level. And I think over the years it's become that. I think we're more so there now than we were before, but I think we're maybe missing that middle ground of players at the moment. We've kind of got those two top lower tier. We've got an amazing basics Ultimate that's going on at the moment, which from what I can see in the chat, you know, we're getting absolute beginners coming into playing the sport, which is really great. And I'm very proud to be part of Reading doing those sorts of initiatives.
Yeah.
But we've just got to keep building for those different levels so that everyone has a chance to play at the level that they want to play at. Yeah,
fair. So kind of looking a little bit mixed in the UK, from Reading's perspective, like national title in 2016, and it's kind of been struggled to replicate that success since. So we've seen Bleagles go on a two-win run in 2017, 2018, and then Smog had done that in 2019, 2021. Do you think this year will be different for Reading, or will someone else take the title?
I would love for it to be Reading. I think we're working hard towards that. Yeah. I mean, obviously, as you say, like we won 2015, 2016, and then Europeans as well. We won 2016. But the more we move along, the more I realize how long ago that was. And so it's great that we've still got this desire to want to be on top, but I think we're no longer expecting it, which I think will do us better in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. for sure. And I guess, what are your thoughts generally on mixed in the UK at the moment? Is it as strong as it used to be? Is it struggling? How's it doing, do you think?
Oh, I think it's so much better than it used to be.
Yeah.
I think the fact that people are choosing mixed as a division has improved it so much. And I think in the UK at the moment, I would argue that it's probably one of the closest contested at the top. The fact that you do have Reading, Deep Space, Smog Rising, the four of us, as always, one of us could come out on top, or one of us could not. Whereas I don't quite think at the moment you have that so much, especially in the open division. The women's division, there's a little bit more contention, but definitely compared to the open division, there's so much more intrigue in who's going to win in mixed.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. Like, as you say, like, there's definitely more closely competitive teams and clubs in mixed than there are in open. In the women's side, I think I'm actually really looking forward to nationals to be able to watch some of that, because you got ICNE, SIC, Bristol, you got the Irish teams coming across, you got Spice coming through, who have started taking W's against big teams like ICNE. It's a pretty exciting time to be in that division, I think, as well. But as you say, I think mix is pretty strong too. And it's funny that we have this conversation too, because if you've been reading any of the Alba WUC profiles, player profiles, some of them who previously played at Bleagles have said that the mixed division was too easy, but they didn't find it so easy playing us Reading lads at Tour, I'll tell you that much. So maybe they'll want to come back and have a challenge. And on that, I guess, like, Reading and Smog women gave a good showing at Wind Farm. Smog and Reading Open both came top 4 as well. What do you think it says about the competitiveness of our division, and specifically about those two clubs that were able to go to a different division and I guess perform so strongly?
Yeah, I think it's a real testament to those clubs, and I think it's a really good thing, especially for the women, to be able to go away and play together, because I think actually some of the success that Smog and Reading have had is the fact that the women do have that chance to go and play women's together, so we all get to do a bit more, because in mix sometimes it is harder as a woman to make the same impact. But because we get a chance to actually practice our hucks, be the main player, it then means when we come back to mixed, we can do more, and actually the game plays better because you've got strong people on both genders. I think that's definitely something that, since I first started compared to now, the evenness of the genders is so much better than it was when I first started. When you look back 5-6 years ago, it generally is the guys playing with the women not really doing much, or clearing, or just playing defense. And now that's just not the case. I mean, you've got huge players like Helen Thompson and Layla on Deep Space, who are known in those teams as big players. And I think that's what's really changed in mixed as well, is that actually there's no longer that whole playing with bollards.
yeah, for sure. It's interesting you say that, actually. Last night when we were training, Andy called line for the O-line, and he called himself and Lawrence handling, I think, and then called like me, the continuation cutter off the front of Stack, who was also a male matching player. So after he called the line, we all kind of stopped and be like, so we're just playing open then, or how's this working? But I think, in his defense, he did say immediately, he said, I was just trying to call people in active roles where I hadn't called them there for a little bit. But yeah, which I think is in that sense, that is a bit of a positive, because it does show that he wasn't just calling that consistently. But yeah, it was quite funny to see. So you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but I found in the UK and Ireland that mix is kind of perceived as Div 2 a lot of the time. It's the second choice for a lot of top players. So it'd be really interesting to get your perspective on why you chose to kind of dedicate to mix more primarily. And while there's already a bit of a stream of people going and choosing mix as their primary club, what do you think mixed clubs need to do to recruit more top talent instead of watching them go to open women's teams?
So I have always chosen to play mixed because I find that the speed of the game is quicker. And I think if you chatted to open people who then come and play mixed, they can see there's a difference in speed. And I think for me, going from mixed to women's, it's that same thing of going from open to mixed almost.
Right.
The speed of the game is just a bit slower for me. And I prefer mixed. And I guess I've been lucky enough that from really the beginning of my Frisbee career, I was out throwing a lot. I was doing a lot in terms of disc skills. And I think that is something that allows me to be a bigger player in mixed. I think a lot of the time women come into mixed and they maybe don't get as much as they would. And I'm kind of under no impression that if I went and played women's, I could probably do a lot more on the pitch.
Because you still do plenty in mixed as it is.
Women prefer to go and play women's.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And even as you said there, yesterday at training it was 3 guys that got called in. So it's not uncommon that women still do less. And so people go and play women's. But I do think disc skills as well allows me to throw to guys, because it is a different speed. Guys are generally faster, so you've got to throw the disc differently. You've got to throw it differently when you're throwing to the women. And that does take practice. And I don't always think that people want to do that. That's not to say that there's not incredible women in the women's division who don't have fantastic disc skills as well. I'm not saying that at all. But I definitely think in the UK as a whole, disc skills generally are lower overall. And I think that's something that every team and every club could do better at, is just better disc skills. Yeah,
sure. And then I think the other kind of part of that was, what do you think that mixed clubs will need to do to keep recruiting top talent instead of watch them go to open and women's?
Yeah, I think it's a really hard question, because I think it just depends on
definitive
what you
answer.
prefer to play.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and at the end of it all, you could be a fantastic mixed player, you could be a terrible open player, you could be a great open player, you could be a terrible mixed player. That's not to say that you are a bad player, it's just that you don't suit that division. And I think the more that we can see mixed as its own division with its own advantages and disadvantages, and actually the more people will go, oh, maybe I do better off there than maybe open, or women's for that matter. But I think in terms of like recruiting better players, I do generally think the more stronger women players you can have, the more likely things are going to run smoothly for a mixed team.
Fair.
And I definitely remember for a long time with Reading, it was always, I mean, even when we went back in 2018, it was a running joke that the women were just so much stronger than the men. And it was almost like, men, get out the way, let the women do what they want. And it's funny that, like, because I think I got asked that question at training not that long ago, was you generally hear about teams where they play through the men and it's all through the men. And they were like, have you ever played on a team where they didn't? I was like, yeah, Reading.
Yeah, we've changed, man.
Play through the women.
Yeah. No, that's so true. It's so true. And I think that's one of the reasons I like mixed so much, is I had early exposure to playing with some top level women as well, and it made the game, I don't know, significantly more enjoyable. No, it's definitely true.
I think when there's that level ground, that's what makes it enjoyable. That's why I think Smog and Reading and Deep Space are people's preferred choice at times, is because everybody's even. There's no disparity. I mean, you wouldn't want to go play for an open team where you've got 12 people who are fantastic and 12 people who aren't great. I mean, that's not always been the split, but it's fair to say that we all want to play in a team where everyone's great.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on a little bit from the Reading stuff, we'll certainly come back and refer to them again at a later point, but you've played a lot for GB over the years across various age groups and disciplines. So having done my research, i.e. I asked you outright about 20 minutes ago, so you played women's in Lecco at junior level, and then you had 2 stints at 23, so you had the stint in Perth, so that would have been 24s in Perth, and you also had the 23s in London. You played mixed in Royan, and then played mixed again in Győr with GB mixed at the senior team. how do these campaigns kind of vary team to team, I guess, year to year? I'm always really interested to hear about like how GB teams run in terms of consistency from the leadership, or is everyone just kind of given kind of leeway to run the teams as they want, as well as kind of like how do they structure their seasons and kind of training schedules and that. And then I guess the other part of it will be, how did you perform? What was your role kind of team to team, and did that kind of differ? So I guess let's look at like how our teams run and what does the season kind of look like first.
Yeah, so I think every GB team I've been a part of has been run slightly differently.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's quite a nice thing because everybody has different ideas.
Sure.
And I think I've been exposed to lots of different styles of coaching, which I think has then helped me be a better coach because I can see what works, what doesn't. And I think all of them have pretty much always been, it's a 6-month time frame that we're training towards. You pick them in, January, February time, and then the tournament's in July. So they're always that same sort of time frame.
Mm.
But it's mainly been weekend stuff that I've had as part of the tournament. Some we've done warm-up tournaments with. I think, to be honest, the longest one that I had was the one in Perth in under 24s, because it was obviously in January rather than being July.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had the under 24 training squad, which was that 120 people for the first 6 months, and then the teams were selected around July time. So we still had 6 months really until January. It was just the other 6 months.
And also took up your entire off season, what you normally would have had. So, yeah.
It did. I think from the start of, because I think beach was that year as well. I think I did beach,
of course.
and then I did under 24s, and then I did Reading, and then I was training for the GB senior cycle, and then I was back into the senior cycle, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And, it's probably a terrible thing to say, but in some ways there was some benefits to COVID, which it actually made me stop, which I think was a really good thing for me, because I had been on so many campaigns, and each of them has its own benefits, cons, and all of them do try to do, their own style of things. And so having a break was probably a really good thing for me. And I think it helped me recenter in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one, because I think back to I think even first 8 years of playing. So the first 2 I had in school, and I was playing rugby more primarily at the time, but then didn't really take much of a summer off because I had an Irish campaign for the next 2 summers at juniors. And then after that, I just flip-flopped between uni and club for the next 6 years before moving to London. So by the time that I actually got here in the end of 2016, I hadn't had an off season in 8 years. So now I look back as like it's not a surprise. I'm riddled with injuries. Like I didn't have time almost to look after myself. No, that's a shit excuse. But like, yeah, you can see where the wear and tear comes from. Like, cool. So
definitely.
No, that's really interesting. And I guess I hadn't actually given perspective to, like, when I was looking at, the teams you'd played on, just how much like you had going on in those 3 or 4 years leading up to COVID. So then I guess it'd be interesting to know then, all the way from juniors up to that senior squad in Győr, how did your role on the team change, and how did you kind of, how was your performance, I guess, at each of those levels? Like on pitch role then? So like always kind of D-line kind of handler vibe, or have other things been asked of you?
Well, so I definitely started off as a cutter. Because definitely to begin with, my role was just run around and make a nuisance of myself.
We all start there, don't we?
And then I think for London, again, I was still definitely one of the smaller fish on the team, very much just kind of run around and try and catch a frisbee, maybe get a D. And then I think under 24s in Perth was probably the first time that I was given maybe a larger role on the team.
Okay.
And became that kind of mid player where I was sometimes cutting, I was sometimes handling.
Yeah.
And then Royan, again, there was some absolutely amazing people on that Royan team. And I definitely, again, was like a small fish, which was
Right.
fantastic to be a part of. And then I think I slowly somehow transitioned to being more of a handler, just because, as I said, I started doing more of my disc skills, working on that, and
Yeah.
now I think I'm just all over the place. I'm kind of, it's so funny. I always get asked this question when I go into teams and I go to stuff with GB, and everyone's just like, so what do you do? And I'm like, whatever you want me to do.
Yeah. I find the same. I've been a bit all over the place. So when I see the sign up forms for stuff, it's like, do you primarily play O or D line? Do you normally primarily are cut? And it's like, how do you say I just play frisbee? Like I do a bit of everything. Like, yeah, no, fair enough.
I definitely think I've obviously transitioned, and as you've seen on Reading, like I am very much D-line now, and that's definitely my preference. I think I personally do find the O-line quite pressurizing, and so I'm definitely like a D-line player now, but I can do anything on that D-line.
Yeah, fairs. So I guess then from, again, that juniors team all the way through, you've got like varying perspectives on how teams perform at underage level across the world, as well as like senior levels in Europe. What did you think playing against and watching those teams from outside Europe? And what do you think we should be learning from these teams in Europe and in the UK? I guess that doesn't have to specifically be about mixed, if you took anything away from watching the Open and women's teams too.
Yeah, I think playing those teams outside of Europe, or even in Europe as well. I mean, I've rewatched our game against Grut many, many times now that we played at Windmill, and it's that ability to not give the disc back. You know, I'm not saying that we should never make mistakes, because I think that's the wrong perspective to have. I'm all about mistakes happen, days happen. It's how we react to those mistakes that is the key point. But if we can get to a point where our skill level is high enough that those mistakes become less, then I think you're onto a winner.
Yeah.
And definitely playing, North American teams, if you throw it away 5 times, then they're not going to give it back.
Correct.
Yeah. I don't know what I would say. I mean, for me, my biggest thing is disc skills and just cutting down those errors that happen.
Yeah. I find too, yeah, like it is so true of it that it's largely us turning ourselves over a lot of the times when we play these teams, and it would normally, I find it's normally after the first phase or two. So we'll get 1 or 2 passes and then be like, cool, better score quick, and then we throw a hook, or but then we watch them play, and if we play good defense, they're comfortable going through like 6-7 phases, recycling the disc, using the full width, go through 20 passes, eventually score, and it's just different.
And I would say for sure that that whole defensive pressure as well. I mean, when you're playing against like America or even Australia, and you're throwing a disc to someone and you're like, oh, they're free, and just at any point anyone can make a layout bid, or anyone can do this. That's also something that I think, I don't know what the answer is or the solution to get to that point where we're maybe putting bodies on the line a bit more. But I think we're getting there. I think the UK over the years, and even since I started playing, there's been more of an emphasis on the fitness side of things. I think more people are in the gym outside of Frisbee. It's not just, I'll go to Frisbee 3 trainings a week. It's now I've got training, I've got gym, I've got track, I've got throwing, I've got sprints.
And for sure.
And that's how we get to there, right?
I think on the laying out bit as well, there's a really interesting series of articles, I think it is, from Chapo, who plays with Cusp, after they beat Clapham, and he spoke to the culture. I think he wrote it for Flick, Brummie's series of articles and resources, and he spoke about basically the culture of training where they get on each other's back for not bidding on stuff. and it'd be one of these for someone who'd be like, oh, I'll bid in the game that matters, or I'll bid in the points that matter. It's like, but if you don't practice that, how do you know you're going to bid? How do you know you're going to catch it? So I guess it's just about getting that stuff into your routine, I guess, into your culture, into like, that's just how you play frisbee, is you just bid on stuff. And naturally, like, you don't want to do it in a dangerous way. But like, certainly getting used to it is, and then getting good at it is, you know, the first step to not being reckless. So I guess another few questions on your formative years at GB, but favorite GB memory?
Favorite GB memory? Probably I would say under 23s in London, whilst it came off the back of us unfortunately losing out in a 3-way tie to go to the semis. Our last game that we played in the 5-6 was against South Africa, and it was just the most enjoyable game I've ever played. And even though we'd lost out in the semis and we had all that heartbreak, we came back, we fought back, we finished as high as we could, and I can remember at the end we were opening bottles of champagne as if we'd won the tournament.
Love that.
And I think to have that, even though we'd lost out the day before on a really hard loss, for the team to come together like that, I've got very special memories of that year of under 23s.
That's huge. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. No, yeah, I think it speaks volumes to teams that when you do, the disappointment of no longer being able to medal or like fight for the top prize, to be able to just pick yourselves up and say, you know, we've still got our you know, our country's flag on our jersey. We're still playing for what that represents and what that means, and let's go out and do that proud. You know. And then unfortunately I'm gonna also ask you about your least favorite GB moment or memory.
My least favorite. Oh, I can tell you this one. It was at Yor where I pulled my hamstring in the first warm up of the first game.
Shit. I was going to say that whole tournament playing in the 38 degrees with no AC.
Well, we had thankfully gone to a hotel, so we had AC.
Oh, shush. Yeah.
But yeah, no, the first warm up of the first game, I pulled my hamstring. And it had been an injury that I'd had earlier in the year. And so I actually missed out on the first 4 games. And I can remember we played Russia, and that was really hard because I really wanted to be on the pitch for that game. But I still got to play some. I played our last power pool, our semi, our quarter, our semi, and our final. So I got to play some.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize that.
That was hard.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I said that was an absolute pain. Because I distinctly remember you picking up the disc at one point in the final and just throwing one past hook goal. And I was thinking, like,
yes,
I wouldn't.
It's a Ken.
yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, didn't realize the rest of the week was a struggle. You made it look easy. So I guess looking forward a little bit, and specifically your next 3 to 4 weeks, you've got a pretty busy schedule, but a pretty epic summer. For anyone who doesn't know, Bex is playing on the World Games team next week in Alabama, and then at the World Ultimate Club Championships a few weeks after in Cincinnati. So let's look at the first event first, looking at World Games. How's the process been so far with the team?
It's been really good. I think we've had an extended squad of 23 players at every training, so that we can actually play when we're training competitively at a high intensity level. And those training squad players have been fantastic. I don't think we would be in a position we are right now without them, because we wouldn't have been able to practice. 7v7 Iron Manning is uncomfortable, so without having those extra players we wouldn't be where we are. So very grateful to those people who were there for us, and it's been really, really great fun to play with people who I wouldn't normally play with, because this is obviously bringing together everyone in the UK. So we've got people from the Open and the women's division, and it's been really, really good fun to just play with different people at such a high level.
Yeah. I guess talk to us a little bit more then about the season structure. Like how has it been structured? Maybe go back as far as trials, just to give people that perspective as well. And then what brought you to here, like in terms of warm-up events or games or anything like that?
Yeah, so we had a pre-trial back in October. So there were 3-day trial events that happened. Then there was an initial cut after that. Then we had the off season to get fit and get ready for the main trial, which then happened in Edinburgh in February. Unfortunately, the weekend of that horrible storm.
Oh yeah.
So there was all this chat just before it happened of whether everyone was going to make it. And unfortunately, my flight back did get cancelled. So
of course, yeah, because you were up in...
for giving me a lift home.
You were in Edinburgh, weren't you?
Yeah, up in Edinburgh.
But you were driven to the airport. I remember you saying, right? So your car was at the airport?
Yeah, so unfortunately my car was at the airport at Heathrow.
Yeah.
So my trip back was, I got a lift from Sam to Oxford, and I had to get a bus from Oxford to Heathrow, and I got a taxi, the most extortionate taxi I've ever paid for, back to where my car was, and then I got my car, and then I got home because I couldn't extend my parking to the next day, so I could go and pick my car up the next day. So that was... God. Pretty awful. It did ruin my Sunday afternoon. I was so ready to sit on the couch, have a takeaway, put my blanket on, watch Love is Blind. It was going to be great.
Because I remember, I think I texted you that evening, but it's been like, tell me how'd you get on, and you were like, we might not talk about it right now. You filled me in the next day, and I was like, this is not what you needed. Like, yeah, fair enough. Cool. So that was the carnage of the second trial, or the main trial.
Yeah. But the main trial in Edinburgh was fantastic. Again, it was just so much fun to play at such a high level with so many new people as well. Again, people that I don't generally get to play with. So even though it was a trial, I had such a great time just being with different people that I don't get to play with a lot. And then since then, we've had mainly weekend trainings where we've been together. We had a warm-up tournament in Heidelberg against Germany and France. And then we also had a weekend training where we played the 4 mixed teams, so Smog, Deep Space, and then Smog 2, although they ended up amalgamating because they just had a few people who weren't able to make it. Yeah, of course. Cool, good. And you've kind of touched on it a little bit, but how have you found being on the pitch with some of the others in the squad you've possibly never shared a pitch with before? So I'm largely thinking the Clapham lads, because I was thinking of the squad, and I think between Reading teams and GB teams, you've probably played with pretty much everyone else at some point. So I think it might just be the Clapham boys you won't have like really shared a pitch with. So how have you found that? And I guess both culturally and then stylistically in how they play. Yeah. I really, I was probably a bit of a snob to say, oh, what they're doing in my division kind of thing. They play open. Thanks. It was in some ways, I was shocked at how quickly I clicked with them, actually. And immediately I was like, oh, I can just throw this flick bomb at you and you're going to run it down. Great. Yeah. So I was actually really surprised at how quickly I clicked with some of them on the pitch, which was really fun and just made the whole experience a lot easier. And I'm hoping that next week we'll keep clicking in that sense. I think it's been really interesting to get their perspective as well. I mean, I think it's probably fair to say that Clapham is one of the hardest working teams in the UK. They train the most. Their trainings, for most of the people that I've spoken to, are some of the best in the UK. So to have their kind of attitude towards trainings and like speaking to them about how they put things in perspective has been really interesting to speak to. And again, it's just helped me maybe change my mindset in how I come across at trainings as well, and what I do at trainings and how I work towards things. Yeah, cool. Oh, good. And where am I going next? So we've seen from some of the other teams in attendance at World Games, they have pretty big training squad numbers for the duration of their campaign.
Most specifically, I'm thinking of the German team, which looks pretty big in numbers. I guess the benefit, and you've spoken to it too, is that you have players to train against, but you also then have the ability to like switch people in if anyone gets injured. And I know Germany have had that, and you've had that as well. How's the training squad featured for GB this year? And do you think you had, you know, the right number? Or could you have gone with a bigger squad, kind of like with Germany?
I think we probably had the right number, to be honest. I think
Okay.
it was just enough to, I would say, complement the rest of us.
Yeah.
And actually it meant that we could still stay at such a high level throughout.
Yeah.
Because the whole of the training squad deserved to be there. And so it was great to just have those right amount of people that allowed us to still play 7-a-side, still play a full weekend of training.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we needed any more.
Okay, sweet, cool. And a fan submitted question: how does World Games training differ to that at Reading?
How does it differ? I think it's the intensity, and because we've got such little time together, I think all of us value that time.
Yeah.
Whereas at Reading, you know, even this year we started training together really back in January, and we train together weekly. We have seen each other on the weekends, and so I guess there's more time to iron out the kinks, whereas I feel like with the World Games, because we've only got those certain amount of weekends, it's kind of like, well, we haven't got time to muck about. We've got to get this right.
Yeah,
I think that's the difference.
And do you think that's time pressured, or do you think that's just people's approach to training? And like, I'm thinking more specifically to the World Games crew in some ways, but do you think that there's anyone on the squad who, if you had like weekly or every second week trainings, that they'd kind of rock up and take it less seriously, as if every session didn't matter?
No, I don't think that would be the case. I think even if we had weekly sessions, I think there would possibly be the same intensity. I think that more just speaks to the people that are coming to those sessions, maybe more so. That's not to say that Reading doesn't also have those players.
Yeah.
I think it's just, you know, it's a different kind of intensity level.
Yeah, fair. And then you've mentioned you've had a couple of rounded games, so you had the Heidelberg weekend, and you've played other games at home as well. So how did the results go in those games?
So for Heidelberg, we beat France, we beat Germany, but then lost to them on the second day. And then with the UK teams, when we played them, it was all wins as well.
All wins.
But you know, you can't count your chickens.
Yes.
Or count your eggs, or whatever the saying is.
It is chickens, but I personally have none.
Chickens.
Yeah, I personally have no chickens, so it's hard to count them anyway.
I remember from my under 24 year with Perth, we played Germany, I think 3 times in the run up to the tournament, and we beat them very convincingly all 3 times. We played them in our pool stages, and we won on sudden death. And then the last game, where it was placement, I think it was the 7-8, we lost.
Yeah.
And so I very much am always a bit cautious when we go beating teams about thinking, oh yeah, we've got this. Because I'm like, oh, you never know.
I've not seen any of the footage from those kind of France and Germany games, but I've seen the German and French teams on paper. It's like, you'd be mad to go to Alabama and think that you're going to get guaranteed wins or anything. So yeah, no, that's right.
Oh, for sure.
And I think too, like, God, yeah, you telling that story always reminds me of 2015, where we went to Euros with the Irish mixed team, and we did very well that year. But we played France 4 times that year. The first time we beat them something like 15-10 at Windmill, or 15-9 maybe at Windmill, and then played them again in the final, which is 15-10. Played them in the final of Golden Cup, and we won on Universe, starting on offense. And they got to the semi-final of Euros, and we were 9-4 up at half-time. This is when games were still to 17. We were 9-4 up, and we had to score 2 in a row to beat them 15-14. So we chumped that second half pretty hard. But it just kind of shows, I guess, from both sides, like, whether you have momentum, whether you have experience beating a team, you need to win you need to focus on winning every time, because it's not just going to happen. Yeah. Definitely. So I guess you're flying soon. How do you think you'll fare over there in Alabama?
I really don't know. I don't want to
hypothesize.
I just don't want to think. I don't even want to think about it. I kind of want to just go out, and obviously all of us have got high expectations. All of us have said that we would like to be, top 4 medaling. Of course we would. Of course. And we're all going to play like that's the goal. Mm-hmm. For me, I very much wanted this tournament to be. I've left everything on the pitch, and I started training for this cycle last October. Yeah. And I can honestly turn around to myself and say that I have not stopped since the beginning of October. Yeah. And so for me, for World Games, it's now I can't do anything more. There's nothing more I could have done. So all I have to do now is stand on the pitch and play frisbee. And I think that I'm really proud of myself for feeling in that position, that actually there wasn't anything more I could do. I'm going to be the best player that I'm going to be. Sure. Obviously it'd be nice if I didn't have issues with my knee at the moment, but
same.
One of those things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, definitely. I know you just want to get out there and play and just do all that, but is there anyone, I know we've seen the groups, you've got USA, Canada, Germany, is there anyone you're most excited to play against, or is it just get all the games in because they're all gonna be great?
I think they're all going to be great. I mean, I am super excited to play the US because, they're the US. Why wouldn't I be excited to play them?
Yeah.
And I know they're not in our pool, and we may not end up playing them. I would love to play the Colombians, mainly for the Cardenas twins. I would just love to match up against them.
Mm-hmm. Such a benchmark of,
so maybe we'll
I guess, both talent but also athleticism these days. Yeah, I remember watching them in Dublin when they were like 12, winning Worlds in the under 18 or the under 20s category, and you're 12 and your teammates are all like 12, 11, 13 around you, and this is a decade later. So they're low 20s and they've been winning shit across the world for a decade. It's crazy. But
absolutely crazy.
Yeah, they're a large part of the reason Revo are probably my favorite team to watch in the world. Mm-hmm. They're so exciting. Well, I mean, as much as I hate to say I'm rooting for GB, I do hope the squad play their best ultimate and give a good showing of the strength of the team and nation. And then I guess specifically for you, I hope you crush it, like stat leader, MVP, all that good shit. You got the whole support of Reading Club behind you, and we're super proud of you. So even if we do give you a slagging for all your media appearances, we're behind you. Don't you worry.
Everybody's called me up.
Yeah. Your phone's been flashing in the background this whole interview.
Honestly, it's just been crazy.
Yeah. So then you got a week of chill after World Games, and then you're on to the World Club Championships. How's the season been to date with the WUC squad?
It's been great. It's always difficult, I think, in a run up to a big tournament, because we all know that that's not the end. It is further on in the season as well. We've got regionals, nationals after that as well. Mm-hmm. I think that the team is really coming together now. We've spent a long time together, and I think this is probably the longest that we've trained, because, like I said, we started training in February, really, because we did Elite Jan, and then we had trials, and we picked the team pretty much middle of February. And then from February, we've been training weekly, which is great. We had that hunt while we were at 3G for a long time, which helped with the fact that we could train over winter. We had the floodlights. So I think this is the longest we've had together. And I think that does speak for, how our structures have gone. I feel like we're a bit more comfortable in our structures than maybe we've been before. And now it's just that playing aspect, playing together, making sure we're there for each other. But I'm super excited to play with Reading in Cincinnati.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. So speaking of Cincinnati, last time, look, the team had kind of mixed results. So you had some big wins, some big performances, and then faltered against marvelous DC, who, to be fair, when I saw that squad list at the time, I was like, they could be a banana skin for someone, and unfortunately it was Reading. Yeah. So the team is obviously shaping up quite well, as you've been saying. Do you think we'll perform better than last time? Is it hard to know just because of, you know, these potential banana skins hidden amongst the bunch?
I think it's really hard to know. Yeah. The team is so different, I think, to last time. And whilst we've still kind of got maybe that core group of people, it's such a different vibe, and I think there's a different feel towards this world. I think last time Reading as a club was still quite young. We hadn't really been in that elite side of things for that long, and so there was kind of less expectation from ourselves of like, hey, you know, we're a good squad, we should do well. Whereas now I feel like we've been at, you know, not the top, but we've been at the top level for a while now. And so I think there's just a bit more fire, I guess, to go out there and perform.
Fair. Yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask what's kind of the difference this year to the previous cycle. And obviously there's different personnel, but I guess like maybe there's a difference in approach from the leadership and culturally because of those different personnel. Like, you know, you're going to have different vibes. So what's kind of standing out as maybe feeling different this time?
Yeah, definitely. I think the leadership is different. Last time we tended to do weekend trainings. We had a few people who were from further away, and so weekend trainings made sense. Whereas this time, as I said, we've been doing weekly trainings, and I think we've had more of a focus on that tactical side of things. We've been doing film sessions. We've been really dialing into, okay, how do we win, rather than let's just play frisbee.
Yeah, nice. And I guess same kind of question as I asked for World Games, but is there anyone you're particularly looking to play against, or do you care? Like, are they all just a bunch of nerds you get to jump?
All just a bunch of nerds.
Yeah.
No, I don't have anyone in particular that I want to play. I think it's always nice to play new people. I think the one that would be almost a little bit frustrating if we played them early on would be Groot. I love playing Groot. I think they're great, and I would love to play them in the top 8 kind of thing. But I don't really want to play them before that. Not because I'm worried they're going to kick us out, but I'm kind of just like, I'd like some new things.
Yeah, and I also think as well, like when you have a fairly storied, you know, dare I say, rivalry like that, then it's worth doing that at the proper stage rather than, like, you know, hidden in the pools somewhere or something like that. Yeah. Fair. So yeah, I've a few more questions kind of about like your mindset and stuff like that, and kind of mental prep, and then just kind of some broader questions before a little quick fire round. So there isn't too much left, although it kind of depends on how long you want to speak for some of these answers. So personally, like, what's your mental game like for a week-long tournament versus a weekend tournament or a 3-day event like Windmill or EUCF?
I don't think that I have it yet. I don't know what it is, because I think every time I've been to a week-long tournament, I've adjusted something or I've tried a different approach.
Yeah.
I think that most of the time for kind of the week-long stuff, I've learned that, and I think I saw it in one of your other interviews, it's about taking time for yourself, time away from the team as well, because it just is draining sometimes. And especially with playing and captaining as well, I am very much making sure that, you know, there's 10-15 minutes where I'm just taking time to myself, outside and away from the team, which maybe I wouldn't quite so much in a weekend tournament, because I'm just like, I just want to be around everybody all the time and have all the fun and play all the board games. Whereas I think for this week coming up to work, I'm very much aware that actually it's okay to do all of that, but I've got to take some time for myself just to reset. Yeah,
sure. No, I think that's really important as well, and you know, especially for the captaincy, who are not only worrying about themselves, but you know, whatever our squad size is, the other 24 around them, and no, definitely. So with World Games and then WUC and then hopefully Nationals, Euros, you'll probably be looking to like quadruple peak this year in terms of performance. Do you find that like difficult or fatiguing? And what do you do in the lead up to these kind of big events to prepare yourself?
I think for me, it's just about almost having like a checklist in my head. And it sounds really silly, but like that packing checklist of, okay, have I got my boots? Have I got my frisbee? And I guess that organization of my life to be like, well, okay, I've got everything. Let's go. Yeah. I think because I've had, an injury this month, I've maybe not been as prepared as I would like to be for these tournaments. Because normally I would have still been carrying on with the workouts that I was doing. I've had to kind of adjust that to make sure that I'm still getting that fitness in. I don't know. I don't see it as peaking. It's just, okay, what's the next tournament?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, sometimes when people talk about flow state, like mid game and mid tournament and stuff like that. Like, I guess like if you just have that for your season, then just give me the next event. I'm with you. Yeah. And I guess in between the events, is there much that like you kind of do to maximize performance before the next one rolls around? Like obviously with, World Games and WUC, there's a week gap. So it's probably recovery, just make sure the body's feeling good for Cincy. And then you have a bit more of a gap then before stuff like regionals, nationals. Is there anything that you do in terms of, I guess, rehabbing, recovery that's you found particularly useful?
So I think I probably speak for most frisbee players that we're bad at actually taking time to recover. It's always, okay, what's next? That's next thing. So I am definitely going to take some time off. I mean, the week between World Games and WUC, I'm pretty much just having a ball in the US. Yeah. So there's not much I'm going to be doing other than that. Yeah, I'm going to tourist. And then when I get to Reading, I can have my mind reset to that point. Cool. But I don't think I've got nothing special to say other than I think it's worth taking time to recover. And actually, it's okay to sit at home and watch Stranger Things or something like that.
Yeah. No, definitely. So looking back on your career to date, any regrets or missed opportunities?
So the one that I always say is I wish I had been in the right position to have captained WUC 2018. I captained for 2015, 2016, 2017. Yeah. And then I kind of gave up the captaincy, even though we had qualified for WUC whilst I was captain. And I can't really call it a regret because I don't think that I was in the right frame of mind to have captained that 2018 year. And I was actually away traveling in Australia and New Zealand for the first 3 months of the year. So there were things that didn't make sense for me to do it. But I wish I had been in the right place to have captained that year because I did feel like I lost out on something that I had brought Reading to, or had been a very big driving factor in bringing Reading to. I lost all that leadership that I enjoy, and it definitely marred the 2018 season for me. More just because I wanted to be in a different space than what I was than anything else.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, and I think we've spoken to that before as well, and I think as much as it's a bit of disappointment, especially for the reason you said there, whereby like you were one of the big influencing factors of getting to that point, to not be able to see that through almost. But yeah, it's good that you don't see it as a regret per se, just something that was would have been nice to have almost.
Yeah, and I think I've been really lucky in what I've done throughout frisbee. I that's the only thing I can really think of. I've got a lot of things that I don't think I did very well, but I think that I think that all of them have been very good learning opportunities, and I think that I am a far better player for those mistakes that I made. I'm a far better captain and overall person, I would say, just from some of those mistakes that I did make.
Yeah. And similar to the above, slightly different though, I guess, and again, fan submitted. What's one bit of advice you'd give your younger self in a Frisbee context?
The journey that I've had has just all been right. I don't know, what would I say to myself? Work harder. No.
Yeah.
I really don't know. I think that I've always come into Frisbee with a good enough attitude. No, there we go. Start the gym earlier.
Yeah.
You know, I've spent probably the first 4 years of Frisbee kind of like just playing, and I gained so much from doing all that work outside of Frisbee. It makes such a difference.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I hate the gym. I hate it. I hate doing all that sort of thing. I really do.
Yeah.
And there are times where I sit there and I am dragging my feet to get out there and do something.
Yeah.
And whatever anyone says, motivation is a skill that anyone can learn. Anyone can learn to be motivated for something. It's really hard, but 100% you can learn to be motivated. And I kind of had that moment where I wanted to be better, and it did change. But yeah, you can learn to be motivated. Whoever says, oh, you know, it's a talent, that's just not true.
Yeah, it's a skill. It's practicable. It's it's you know, embedded in your routine and everything. Yeah, for sure. And you know what? I'd say the same thing. I'd say like S&C is such an enormous part of the game now, and for the right reasons. Like, it's not even just because it makes you like jump higher or, you know, bid further or run faster or whatever. It is so big on injury prevention.
Oh, definitely.
Like, I think I look back at any season where I performed my best Frisbee, I didn't have that many injuries, and I would closely link it to a big off season or early season prep and stuff like that. So yeah. couldn't echo that sentiment louder, to be honest.
You can cut all my mumbling and
I will.
That.
It was bad content.
It's very bad.
There's a bit of a quick fire round to follow, but a fan has submitted this question and they're desperate to know, of the calendar, which month is your favorite Bex face?
I've actually hidden it, so I really don't know.
Is it not inspirational for when you go out on the pitch? Oh dear.
Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, Reading very kindly got me a calendar last year, which for every month was a different photo of my awful Frisbee face. And if you have seen any photos of me playing Frisbee, you will know exactly what I'm on about. I cannot control my features, especially when I am going for a D or something.
Yeah, to the point that I created a thumbnail for a YouTube video this year that was going to be unlisted anyway, so only the club would see it. And I sent it to Bex, being like, "You are the face of Reading Ultimate." And she's like, "Can you fucking not?" Like, it's not her. It's not her favorite topic. Like. Yeah. And Samo, it's going to have questions thrown his way. It's like, "Can you not enable Hoagie?"
Do you know what's even worse is I know that he doesn't even post some of the worst ones because he sent them to me instead.
Yeah, for sure. I love when Sam does that. He will send around a couple of photos basically being like, not to be shown publicly, or like so-and-so's chatting shit on the stream. It's like, "Do you want to show them this photo?" It's like, nah, we'll leave that out. So before I get to my 10 questions, there's a few other fan submitted ones. Favorite non-Frizz sporting moment? But I guess that's going back a while.
Well, yeah, it is going back a while, and like I didn't really play sport before I came into Frisbee. I very much, you know, I was active with my family. We'd do walking, I'd play badminton with them, that sort of thing. Yeah. But I didn't come from a sport per se. I just kind of did like PE at school, really.
Fair.
I don't really have an outside of Frisbee sporting moment.
Okay. Fair enough. Biggest fear?
Spiders.
Yeah, they're not great.
Oh, they're just the worst.
Yeah.
Cool. And like, what's in the dark. I'm not scared of the dark, but I'm
Yeah.
like, you know, when you're in a black room and you're like, there could be anything in here, and I just don't know it. Like that's to me is terrifying.
Yeah, I've lived in some pretty like old houses in London during like house shares and stuff, and in one of them that I lived in actually only for a few months of the pandemic, we had mice in our house, and there was one evening I woke up to the sound of like there was like a chimney in my room, but like it wasn't proper like fire, but I could hear like bits of the wall within the chimney getting chipped down, and I was like, there's only one thing that could be doing that. So there was literally mice in my room for a period of time, and I did not sleep for about 3 days. It was so uncomfortable to know that just any noise in the dark was mice. So quick fire round. I guess I want your actual answer, but a fast answer is a good answer.
Okay.
Favorite tournament snack?
I'm really bad at eating at tournaments.
Oh.
Oh no, tang plastics, and they're even better when it's a warm tournament and they kind of just become one big tang plastic.
Oh no. I think that happens every single year at Windmill, where at Lidl I will buy like the apple rings or whatever, like the fizzy apple rings.
Oh yes.
And after one day at Windmill, I just have one fizzy apple blob. Like it's consistent. Favorite.
I'll tell you a funny story about Peach Loops afterwards if you want.
Oh, go for it. Go for now. It's relevant.
So probably not to go on the interview, but
All right.
for Reading when we played Euros, I think it was either just before our final. I walked into the boys' room, and I think it was Sam Gumby was like, think of or like say a number between 1 and 5 or something. And it was just like a random number, and it was like what he was thinking. And if you got it, then you had to put a peach loop on. Now, where these peach loops were on the men was around their penises, and for the women, it was around their nipples. And for the beginning of, I think, our warm-up, I was very aware that there was peach loops around certain areas of our teammates.
That's so funny. What is this? Brilliant. So
yes, and that was us going into our European final.
Yeah, I'm never eating a peach loop again, to be honest. I don't know where they've been. If anyone ever offers me a peach loop, I'm like,
only accept one from Sam Gumby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So favorite pump up song or artist?
It changes.
Okay, currently going into World Games, what's gonna get you buzzing?
Gonna be awful, but the song that I had in my head at trials in Edinburgh, and I was very happy with how I played at trials, and it's a song called A Drunk, and it's like a terrible country pop song, but it was literally playing on repeat in my head, and I've got it stuck in my head at the moment. It's kind of my that's what I remember.
Yeah.
Like playing good frisbee, having fun.
Yeah, coming from like a rugby background, I've always like my pump up songs are like proper ragey, whereas like other people are like, yeah, frisbee's so chill, I got a vibe to something. I'm just like, you're awful.
Yeah, I'm probably more of a. I think for me, it's like, does the song make me feel good? And like that could be anything. Like it varies from one tournament to the next.
Yeah, for sure. Like if you listen to my music before I go out and play, if I'm playing O-line at a tournament, it's all about like having like mad swag. If I'm playing D-line, it's like I'm gonna go out and murder someone. Like it's like it's really dark stuff. Like favorite team to play against?
It's got to be Grit. However much I know I said earlier on about not wanting to play them, but they're so good, and I love matching up against their women. Yeah,
fair. Least favorite team to play against? Yeah. Why did I think you'd say that? Your favorite tournament?
Favorite tournament? I mean, it's probably got to be Euros 2016 when we won.
Fair, yeah. Yeah. Fan submitted. So who's your biggest influence to date in your ultimate career? So it could be like captain, coach, teacher, teammate, whatever.
I mean, can I say multiple people?
Sure, yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I mean, Mark obviously is huge influence in even why I'm still playing.
Yeah.
He used to do a lot of stuff. Andy, I wouldn't be the player that I am without him for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then people like Anya, Kat, Chrissy, having those women to look up to and how they played offense and defense. It was just so good to have so many really athletic women around me, and it just pushed me to want to be better for sure.
Yep. Cool. This one submitted from a fan as well. So if you could have a superpower for 24 hours only, what would it be and why?
Flight for sure, or teleportation. Got to be one of those two.
Yeah, so I have a fear of falling, so I'm okay with heights, but fear of falling is one of the it's one of the two natural fears we have. Fear of it's not, is it? Yeah, fear of falling and fear of loud noises are the two natural fears you have, and everything else is learned. So I've just kept that one on. But yeah, so when it comes to flight, I was like, I wouldn't want to be flying when those 24 hours hit, or I'd absolutely shit myself.
God, yeah, okay, no, I'm going with teleportation then. If I end up somewhere weird after 24 hours, that'd be fun story getting back, right?
Yeah. Yeah, fair. My answer to that question when Klima asked me last week was the ability to turn metal into money. And then I'd just stay out for 24 hours, turn everything into money. Yeah, and then I'd just be minted.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a really good one.
Yeah. Okay. Last three questions. Are things on fire, or is fire on things?
I think things are on fire.
Okay. It's not true, but it's fine. Is if a tomato is a fruit, is ketchup a smoothie?
No.
Okay. Good, you shouldn't drink ketchup. And final question, would you cut Big Nil to take Nads from the training squad to main squad?
Would I cut Big Nil to take him, or would I cut Big Nil to have Nads for Reading, do you mean?
Yeah. So basically you gotta cut one, keep one, basically Big Nil or Nads.
Oh, I keep Big Nil.
Oh, that's an enormous claim.
Oh,
tell us in the comment section if you agree. Well, that is all the questions that I have for you, Bex. Thank you so much for joining. Is there anything I've not asked about that you would like to speak to, or is there anything you would like to ask me?
How have you found Reading rather than Deep Space?
They're both very different, and I enjoyed my time at Deep Space immensely. I got a lot out of those 2 years. I think as much as personal development growth, as much as enjoying my frisbee and stuff like that. I've really enjoyed Reading. Culturally, it's very different. Ability wise and stuff like that, we're not crazy dissimilar. The games we've had against each other this year have been close, and I guess it's been a lot more traveling. D-Space training last year was a 5-minute walk from my house midweek, and a 10-minute cycle. So yeah, it's definitely less cash, more travel time. But no, I'm enjoying both so far. No regrets with the move. Yeah, looking forward to see if we end up playing them again later in the year. Have a good game.
How do you feel Reading's going to do at work?
Ooh, spiky. Hard to know because I don't know groups and I don't know format. I think the best we've played this year, if we can put it together for a whole tournament, we could be in the conversation at the business end of it. For sure, top 8's not unachievable. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to see if we peak and make use of our potential.
Yeah,
big time.
No, I'm excited too.
Good. Well, Bex, that's all we'll give the time for, because I appreciate you've got bigger fish to fry. Best of luck next week.
Yeah, Sky News is on the phone.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. There's a helicopter outside, home of Bex Palmer. But honestly, like, best of luck next week. I hope it all goes to plan. I hope you personally perform well and the team does great. And I guess I'll catch up with you in a few weeks at Cincinnati.
Nice. See you in Cincinnati.
Toodles. So that was my chat with Bex. If you didn't like it, you should like this video anyway, because irony is a really good form of humor and it'll pad my stats. If you liked it, you should like it anyway, because nobody likes a liar. I hope to get a few more episodes in before WUC, but if not, I'll be continuing the series after WUC and ahead of UK Nats. Remember to subscribe and hit the bell so you know when I publish the next bit of content, and follow me on twitch.tv/itshoagie so you know when we go live with SendIt streams. If you're still here, thanks a mil for sticking around. I really appreciate it. Until next time, see ya.